The movie starts with Thomas being trapped in a freight elevator that ascends at an insane speed. As he rises, strange creatures attack him from outside the elevator. When Thomas arrives and the elevator door opens, he finds himself surrounded by many people, including Gally, who orders him to be punished because he tried to escape. This was his first day with them. Thomas runs from them but falls, finding himself in front of a massive wall that seems impossible to climb. Of course, they catch him and lock him up. Albie, the leader, visits him in the prison and warns him against trying to escape again. He asks Thomas who he is, but Thomas remembers nothing, not even his name. Albie reassures him that this is normal and that everyone who arrived here went through the same thing. He tells Thomas that he will remember his name within 2 days. Thomas asks Albie about this place, so Albie takes him on a tour, showing him how they grow everything themselves and that they receive a supply box every month whenever a newcomer arrives. However, they don't know who sends it. Thomas asks what's beyond the wall. He is told that the most important rule is never to try to cross it. A little later, Thomas goes to the wall trying to discover what lies beyond. He realizes it's a maze and not just anyone can enter and exit. It requires a runner. He attempts to enter, but Gally intervenes, attacking him. The others gather around and Thomas asks why they won't let him enter. Suddenly, he gets his answer when he hears a loud noise and sees the maze shifting, closing in on anyone inside. Gally tells him that next time, he will leave him to his fate. Thomas learns that this place is called the Glade. Newt tells him that they are all trapped here and that only the runners, led by Minho, can enter the maze. Every morning, they go in to map it and memorize its layout, hoping to find an exit. However, Thomas discovers they have been doing this for 3 years with no success. Because the maze changes daily, he also learns that the runners are the strongest and fastest, the only ones familiar with the maze. They must return before nightfall because no one has survived a night inside. Those who remain encounter terrifying creatures called grievers. Anyone who sees them never lives to tell about it. Thomas asks how he can become a runner. He is told that someone must choose him, but no one knows who makes the selection. At this time, Gally provokes Thomas to test his abilities, initiating a fight between them. The others cheer and call Thomas the Greenie, urging him to participate. He dislikes the name, so Gally calls him the Reckless. They start fighting and Thomas falls, hitting his head. The impact triggers a memory. His name is Thomas. Suddenly, they hear a strange noise coming from the maze. They say it's a griever, but assure Thomas he shouldn't worry because nothing can break through the walls. Later, Thomas starts remembering flashes of what happened before he arrived, seeing himself in a dream with people in a laboratory saying, "Wicked is good." The next morning, Albie and Minho enter the maze to follow Ben's trail. Thomas learns that Albie spent a whole month alone in the Glade. When he finally emerged, he decided that everyone needed to work together and not be isolated to survive. As evening approaches, Albie and Minho have not yet returned. The maze begins to close. Minho carries an injured Albie, trying to escape before the gates shut. The others advise Minho to leave Albie and save himself, but he refuses. Thomas, despite the rules, runs into the maze to help, just as the walls seal behind them. Minho tells him he has just sentenced himself to death. Thomas realizes that Albie has been stung by a griever, and that Minho knocked him out because it was the only way to stop him from harming them. As they listen to the maze shifting around them, Minho loses hope, believing there's no way out. Thomas notices vines covering the wall and decides to tie Albie to them for safety. While doing this, Minho spots the maze's doors opening and closing and sees a griever. He tells Thomas they need to run, but Thomas refuses. Minho apologizes and runs away, leaving Thomas behind. Thomas finally sees the creature. It's a massive spider-like monster. He starts running for his life, but the creature corners him. He leaps onto the vines on the wall as the griever jumps after him, trying to sting him. At the last moment, Minho returns, running alongside Thomas. The maze walls shift again. Thomas stops and faces the creature, using himself as bait to lure it into a closing section of the maze. At the perfect moment, he dodges, and the wall crushes the griever, killing it. At sunrise, the maze opens, and everyone waits anxiously to see Minho and Thomas's fate. But they don't return, and everyone assumes they are dead. Just as they start to leave, they turn around and witness a miracle. Minho and Thomas return, and they've brought something with them. Everyone is shocked. No one has ever survived a night in the maze before. When asked if they saw a griever, Minho responds that Thomas not only saw it, but killed it. The group is stunned. How could he do that? Gally accuses Thomas of breaking the rules, but others defend him because he saved Albie. However, Gally fears that killing a griever could have unexpected consequences and suggests punishing Thomas. The others disagree. Gally then asks Minho what he thinks about punishing Thomas. Minho replies that this is the first time anyone has killed a griever, and that Thomas saved Albie while he himself had run away. He argues that they need more people like Thomas and suggests making him a runner. Suddenly, they hear the box rising again, out of schedule. This means a new greenie has arrived, but it's a girl. It's the first time a girl has ever appeared. She looks dead at first, but they find a note in her hand that reads, "This is the last one. This means no more supplies will come." But then she suddenly wakes up. She's alive. The first thing she says is, "Thomas." They take her to be treated. Thomas insists he doesn't know her, even though she clearly knows him. They wait for her to wake up and provide answers. Meanwhile, Thomas decides to enter the maze again. Minho stops him, explaining that the runners have agreed not to go back in after what happened to Albie. But Thomas is determined to find out what they're really facing. Eventually, Minho and 3 others agree to go with him. Inside the maze, they find the dead Griever. Thomas notices something strange and pulls something out of it, a device with the word "wicked" written on it. They decide to leave before nightfall and show the device to the others. It turns out the writing on it matches the markings on their supplies. Thomas suggests they investigate further, but Gally refuses, saying it's against the rules. He demands Newt punish Thomas. Newt suggests locking him in the pit for a day without food, but Gally insists that's not enough. Instead, Newt makes Thomas an official runner, allowing him full access to the maze. Minho takes Thomas to a secret hut where he's built a miniature version of the entire maze, mapping it out himself. He tells Thomas that if there was a way out, he would have found it, but there isn't. He never showed it to the others because Alpi told him not to give them false hope. However, Minho now believes there might be hope. He explains that the maze changes in a pattern and the Griever Thomas killed was near Section 7 when that area was open. Meanwhile, the girl wakes up and attacks them with a rock. Thomas approaches her and she remembers his name. Her own name is Teresa, but she doesn't remember anything else. When Thomas asks if she recalls anything, she says she remembers water, the feeling of drowning, and faces staring at her. She also remembers a woman's voice repeating, "Wicked is good." Thomas realizes he remembers the same thing. He thought they were just dreams. He remembers seeing Teresa in them. She had promised that everything would change. They are shocked to realize they are the only ones with memories. They are different. Teresa then shows him a vial labeled "Wicked." Thomas recalls the phrase "Wicked is good" and realizes she was sent with the vial for a reason, possibly to save Albie. Newt is hesitant, fearing the serum could harm him. But Thomas argues that Albie is dying anyway, so they should at least try. Newt agrees. As Thomas administers the serum, Albie suddenly attacks him, forcing the others to restrain him while Teresa injects the vial. They monitor him, waiting to see its effects. Gally blames Thomas for all the problems and locks him in the pit. Later, Chuck sneaks in and gives Thomas some food. He also shows him a small wooden figure he carved of his family, asking Thomas to give it to them if he ever finds a way out. Thomas, however, hands it back and tells Chuck he should give it to them himself. They promise each other that they will all escape together. The next morning, Minho comes for Thomas, and they enter the maze to begin their exploration. To their surprise, Section 7 is open at an unusual time. As they search the maze, they find bloody, tattered clothing, but can't tell who it belonged to. Suddenly, the device from the dead Griever starts beeping. They realize the sound changes as they get closer to a specific area. The device is guiding them. They reach a dead-end wall, but suddenly the device turns green and activates an opening, a hole in the wall. A laser-like light beams from inside and the opening starts closing. They rush out just in time before the entire maze begins shifting around them. Suddenly, something rises from the ground, massive walls closing in to crush them. They run, barely squeezing through a narrow gap before it seals shut. They escape the maze and find the others waiting for them. They explain that they discovered a new passage that could be the way out, but Gally is skeptical. He warns that there could be an army of Grievers behind that opening waiting to kill them all, and they might have just unleashed them. Gally and Thomas start arguing, but Teresa interrupts them with urgent news. Albie has woken up. They rush to Albie, and Thomas tells him that he may have found a way out. However, Albie warns him that they won't let them leave, and that they will never escape. He starts remembering crucial details, including the fact that he knows Thomas, and that Thomas was favored by the people who created the maze. Albie then asks Thomas why he did it. Suddenly, they hear screams. Night has fallen, but the doors haven't closed. Thomas realizes they must prepare for an attack. He warns Chuck to hide as the Grievers swarm in, attacking and injuring some of the boys while others manage to escape or take shelter in the pit. Teresa throws fire at the Grievers to drive them away. Thomas finds himself face to face with one of the creatures about to be stung, but Minho arrives just in time with a bow and saves him. They finally find refuge, but one of the Grievers breaks in, grabs Chuck, and tries to sting him. Thomas desperately tries to save Chuck, nearly getting stung himself, but Albie intervenes, attacking the Griever. Unfortunately, another Griever returns, takes Albie, and drags him away. Before he dies, Albie tells Thomas to get everyone out of there. Gally suddenly turns on Thomas, blaming him for everything and accusing him of being a spy for the people behind the maze. Just then, Thomas notices a stinger from a fallen Griever in Chuck's hand. Doubt creeps creeps in. What if Gally is right? Thomas decides the only way to regain his memories and uncover the truth is to sting himself and take the serum, just as Albie did. Shocking everyone, Thomas lets the grievers sting him and collapses. They inject him with the serum, and as he slips into unconsciousness, memories flood back. He recalls being inside a laboratory working alongside Teresa, questioning why they were doing this. A woman reassures him, saying WCKD is good, but then he sees flashes of Albie and Gally trapped in water, subjected to experiments. He refuses to watch them suffer. When he wakes up, Teresa and Newt inform him that Gally has taken control and is forcing those who disagree with him into the maze at night. Thomas tells them that he remembers everything. The Glade isn't a prison, it's a test. They were all part of an experiment since childhood. Every month, one of them was sent to the maze as part of a greater plan. He admits that Gally was right to be suspicious of him. He and Teresa were once part of the organization that did this to them, but why were they sent into the maze if they were insiders? That's the real mystery. Newt insists that the past doesn't matter. What matters is who Thomas is now. He's the only one who found the exit, and they need to take their chance before it's too late. Gally, meanwhile, prepares to throw Thomas and Teresa into the maze as punishment. However, many of the boys begin to side with Thomas, realizing that he might be telling the truth. But Gally has something worse in mind. He isn't just planning to send them into the maze, he's going to sacrifice them to the grievers. Gally orders his followers to tie up Thomas and Teresa. Teresa struggles, but Thomas, pretending to be unconscious, suddenly attacks and overpowers them. With the help of Minho, Newt, and Chuck, they defeat Gally's group. Thomas then offers Gally a final chance to escape with them. He refuses and instead wishes them luck. They head into the maze, prepared for battle. Thomas rallies them to work together and reach the door. If they can bring the device close enough, the exit will open. A brutal fight breaks out with the grievers. The key device falls and Chuck rushes to retrieve it just in time. Another griever appears, but Teresa saves him, and they manage to reach the exit. However, the door requires an 8-digit code to open. Thomas calls on Minho, who has memorized the sequence of changing maze sections. Minho shouts the numbers, and they input the code. At the same time, Jeff sacrifices himself to save Minho and gets stung. The code works, the door opens, and the grievers are locked inside, dying. Beyond the door, they find a brightly lit underground passage. They walk forward and reach a door labeled Exit. Thomas opens it and discovers a laboratory. Inside, all the scientists are dead. They find a video recording from Dr. Ava Page, the head of the organization. She explains that if they are watching this, it means they have passed the test. She reveals the truth. The world was devastated by solar flares that burned the land and caused mass starvation. A deadly virus called the flare spread, attacking the brain with no cure. However, a new generation was born immune, giving humanity hope. The maze was a necessary experiment, sacrificing children to study their brains and find a cure. She acknowledges that many opposed her methods. On a nearby screen, they see rebels storming the lab, killing everyone. Ava Page then pulls out a gun, declares WCKD is good, and shoots herself. The group is left stunned. With this horrifying truth, they don't know what to do next. Thomas, however, insists that they must keep going. Suddenly, Gally reappears, still alive but now infected by a griever's sting. He tells them they will never escape and points a gun at them. Minho reacts instantly, throwing a spear that kills Gally. However, just before dying, Gally fires a shot, hitting Chuck. Chuck collapses, handing his carved figurine to Thomas, thanking him before dying in his arms. Thomas is overwhelmed with grief. Just then, doors burst open and armed men rush in, rescuing them and taking them to safety. They are flown away in a helicopter, finally seeing the maze from above. But then, in a shocking twist, Ava Page is revealed to be alive. She remarks that more survivors made it out than expected. Thomas has impressed her. She concludes ominously, "They took the bait." She then prepares them for the next phase of the experiment, and that's how the movie ends. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments.